Hi, welcome to Task 3 of Figma 101. In Task 2, you learned a little bit about how frames worked. You learned how to create frames in 3 different ways, and you also learned a little bit about how nesting works within frames, and you learned about the properties of frames. So in this next task, we're going to learn about components. And components are another equally important element to your design files. So if you don't know what components are, they're actually repeated elements throughout your design. So for instance, they're your bottom navigation bars. You can see that here on my screen. They're buttons, they're status bars, and sometimes they can be other things. So they can be your product category, or they can be a shopping cart or any kind of button that, or any kind of element that you would use that would be repeated throughout your design. So it's important to know how to create these, because when you start creating larger design files and you start having more design systems and design and screens, you'll want to have these, because then you won't have to recreate them every single time you create a new screen or a new app. So larger companies actually have a lot of these. They call them design systems in place, where they have these like kind of massive libraries that have different elements that their designers can use to create new screens. So in this task, we're going to learn how to create them ourselves. If you're feeling really experimental, you can actually pause the video and make these yourself. This is a design course, so I really encourage that kind of creativity. I've created some here just to make it a little bit easier for you, but you can do whatever you want and pause the video and figure out how to make these. They're really simple. You can find resources online. They're just icons, picture cards, and other things like that. But like I said before, we're going to just create them from things that I've already created. So to create a component, you will need to select a frame or a group. So you can actually create a component from a group and or a frame. So I have a mixture of both here. You can see here that these are actually frames. They show up like this, and then our button is actually a group. So let's just go ahead and do a little tutorial. We're going to click on the status bar at the top, so you can see here that I've selected it. And to create a component, we will go up to our toolbar and we will select this button here. So this button looks like a large diamond with maybe 4 smaller diamonds that make up the larger diamond. You'll click that. Another way that you can create a component is you can press Control-Alt-K, or you can create a component by right-clicking and selecting Create Component in your menu, your drop-down menu here. But I usually just create them from the top menu here, our toolbar. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this, and you can see it's highlighted in blue. So if I select this, now my component is highlighted in this purple material, and then that little symbol that was up at the top is showing up to the left of my title. And when I go here on my layer menu, I can see that it says status bar on light, and it has that same diamond with the smaller diamonds, and it's highlighted in purple. So that's how you know that you've created a master component. So let's create those. Let's create a component using the other different methods. Let's create one this way, using our right click. So you can see here that I've created my bottom navigation bar. Just to make sure that it shows up, it's right here on my layer menu. And then I'm going to do the other one, which is, I think it was Control-Alt-K. Oh, that was wrong. It's Control-Alt-K. Control-Alt-K. It doesn't exactly work the command doesn't exactly work on, so like I said before, I'm using a Mac on this desktop. So in real life it would work, but let's just go ahead and create it this way. Button, and then you can actually, so what you don't want to do actually is you don't want to select two objects and then create a component, because look what it does. It creates a component out of all those two objects. So you always want to make sure that you're selecting just one object that you intend to do. Like, don't go and select all of these together and group them, because then they'll actually create one giant component. So we're not going to do that. We're going to just create individual components here. And you can pause the video right here if it's a little bit too fast. Just make sure that you've created all the components, and we should have 5 here. So just pause the video and make sure that you've created 5 master components. And then we'll pick back up and we'll talk a little bit about parent components. Great, so now that you've created all of your components, another way to see that you've created all of your components is that if you go into your layer menu, you can also, once you've created a component, you can also find them in your asset menu. So that's a really nice sort of way to see where your master components are, so that you don't have to go find them on your layer menu, because sometimes these layer menus can get really long and you may not figure out where they are. So if you have your master components, it's really good to kind of have them here and know that they're here. Another sort of best practice that I kind of want to talk about is, usually when I create design components, I actually will put them on a separate page. So I'll just go over that really quick. I will go and, so to create another page, you click this page button, and then this menu will pop up. And then if you press this plus sign, it says add a new page. I'll add a new page. And I actually usually make a style guide. And a style guide is basically just where all of your assets are. And the reason I make that is so just really to organize my file. And then I'm actually going to go here. I'm going to just create a desktop frame, because I'm going to put all of my assets on that. And what I'll do is I'll go back to my other page. So I'll go back to my page menu. I'll press page 1. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take all of these and press Control C. And I'm going to put them in that other page that I made, that little style guide. And the reason I'm telling you to do this is, like I said before, if you're working at a company, they will have a file that literally is just design styles. And it might be like tons of pages of different components, but this is just another way so that your master components don't get mixed up with your working file. And then that way you can find them in here and you can really kind of work with them. So sometimes you can create it on another page, but we can do that. So now that we've done that, just as our best practice, what we're going to do is, what I want you to do is I want you to recreate this page that I have here on the right with all of the components that we just made. So a way to do that is we're just going to select our assets here, and you can see that they're all listed, and we're just going to click and we're going to drag these components. And you can see here they're still highlighted in purple. And we're just gonna, and you can see here that I can just continually take these and just keep dragging them. So they never disappear, they're always there. And that's pretty nice. But I wanna do this one with the guy, so I'm gonna select him and put him here. And then I wanna add my navigation bar at the bottom. So I'll create a navigation bar. Another cool thing about Figma is that it basically aligns all of your objects. So it has these kind of smart alignment tools that are really nice. You should always check though to see if everything is aligned by eye. It's good practice. And then this one already has that status bar. I'm actually going to delete this. That's just a group, and I'm going to add my new status bar there. And then the last thing that we're going to add is then we're going to add this button. So this button here, and we're just going to kind of align it. So if this was too fast for you, pause the video and make sure that you've created this page as nice as you can. So if you pause the video, you should have created this page. So now we're going to talk a little bit about child components. So child components are basically iterations of our master component, and the way that they actually look. So if you remember, the master components had the sort of bright purple icon next to them that was filled in with little dots. A child component actually has a diamond, just a diamond outline. That's how you know that it's a child component. And so there's several cool things about child components and versus master components. So I can actually change. So once I've created my master components, and what I want you to do is actually go back to your style guide that you created, and I can change some properties of my master component, and then what will happen is my child component will follow those properties. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here just so we can actually see this. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually change the color of all of my my assets that are orange. And I'm going to change it to whatever color I want. So I'm going to change this particular one to, let's just change it to blue. Okay, so it's blue now, and then I'm going to go in, I'm going to double click this one here, and then I'm going to change it again to blue. You can change it to whatever color you want. I'm just using blue. So I can change it to blue. What else do I have on this page that was colored? I think I have this one over here. And then if you want to select anything within your component, you just have to kind of double click until it highlights it. So we're gonna press blue, and then we gotta make sure our text is also blue. So I'm gonna go in and highlight this blue color. Like I said, you just have to make sure always that you're selecting the right thing so that it doesn't get confusing. In your inspector menu, you have your fill in color. So I've changed the color and of all of my assets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my actual page, and you can see here that everything has changed. So that's also why components are really awesome, because I don't have to sit here and change every single property of every page that I have. I can just do it in my master component, and then I can go back and double check it in all of my pages. Because like I said before, in a lot of apps, you're going to have maybe 100, you might have like 20 pages, and you're going to be using all of these elements. And the worst scenario that you can go through is if you have to actually change every single element on there. So that's why master components are really important. Other things that you can do to your master components is, we're going to go back to our style guide. You can also change other properties. So let's just go ahead and change other properties. We haven't really gone over this, but in the inspector menu, once you've sort of clicked an object, you can change other properties and add different things to it. So I'm just going to kind of go over this. If I want to, I can change the radius of something. Let's just move this closer so that we can see what we're doing in this menu. So I want to change the radius. Radius is the corners of your object. I'm going to change this to 10. So you can see here that I've changed my radius to 10. And then you can add other effects like stroke. So stroke is basically the outline of your object. I can change the stroke. I can add a color to it, or not a color if I don't want to. Let's just do it black for now. And then I can change the stroke sort of weight, just like 12. That's kind of ugly, but let's actually not do that. Let's just keep it at 1. Then I can add other stuff like effects. So I can add a drop shadow. So, let's just kind of go ahead and change that drop shadow to 10. Kind of not really liking this stroke, so I'm actually going to take this stroke off of here. So if you want to take any kind of element off of, you don't want to use anything, you can either hide it. So you can see here I hid it, so maybe I want to use it later, or I could just completely detach it and just get rid of it. So I sort of created that button, and I need it. And you always just kind of want to go and double check to see how it looks. It's hard to kind of see on here, but you can see here that the radius changed. So it's a different radius than it was before. And it looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So yeah, and then one other thing about components is, say I do actually want to override my master, and like maybe there's an offshoot chance that I want to make just this particular button on this page a totally different color than on any of the other pages. And basically what that means is, like, I don't want to have to change everything about my design. So what I'm going to do is, if I want to override a master, I'm actually just going to go in and I'm going to just detach that instance. So once I've detached the instance, it's actually, you can see that is no longer a component. It's still grouped together in a frame, but it's no longer a component. And then what I can do is, once I've done that, I can double click and I can change the actual property of that one particular button. But just know that it's not a component. However, I can create a component out of this. So I can go back and I can create another component. Sometimes in your design guide, you will find that there will be different states of buttons. I won't go too into that, but like usually there's different states of buttons. They're sort of like a disabled button, an active button. And so sometimes you actually will create several different iterations of the same button. And so basically what that means is you can have like different colors or different sort of instances. And so that's just like another really awesome thing about components. And you can find information about more advanced sort of design systems, but I think for now this is a pretty good tutorial about components. Sorry if it's so long. I just kind of wanted to get really sort of detailed with it so that you had a good understanding. And so I encourage you to, play around with master components, play around with your child components. If you want to create your own components, like I said before, you can pause the video and, have fun with it. This is a design course. So yeah, in the next task, we're going to learn how to create a text style and a color style. So then we can get a little bit more automated with our workflow. Hi, welcome to task 4 of Figma 101. In the last task, you learned a lot about components. You learned how to create them in several different ways. You learned how to create a style guide on a separate page. And you also learned a little bit about how to